The modern Mini was launched by BMW in about 2003, and it's grown up even since that time. Of course, it's grown up totally from the original 1959 Sir Alec Isagonis design of the original Mini. But this version we're driving right now is slightly different. You'll see 15-inch wheels, which are a bit smaller than a lot of the Minis you see on the road today, because this is what's called the Mini 1. And it's probably the closest version that comes to the original from 1959 and that original Mini. There's a lot of reasons why I'm saying it's closer in many ways to that original one. You'll see the two-door body shell with, of course, the nice big hatch, opening to a pretty small boot area, but you can see it actually takes a decent amount of luggage. Split rear seats, 2/3, 1/3, so you can, of course, increase luggage capacity if you want, while you limit the number of passengers you can carry. But then again, remember, the Mini is a Mini, it's a boutique little hatch, and of course does have many special features, and it's a car you love or hate. Somewhere very few people are going to come in between. Let's look at life on the inside. Sitting behind the wheel, it's a familiar place if you've driven Minis before, but let's start by talking about what makes the Mini 1 different to the Cooper and Cooper S versions. The first and foremost factor is the engine. The Coopers, as we know, the standard Cooper puts out 100 kilowatts from its engine. Well, the one has got a 1.2 litre 3-cylinder turbo engine, puts out 75 kilowatts and 180 newton meters of torque, which is pretty adequate for a smaller car, but it is way down on the Cooper and Cooper S versions. So life is a little bit more leisurely while driving. And that comes back to what I said just now about it being maybe closer to the original Minis, because it has handling factors with the slightly smaller wheels and not over-endowed with power to make that driving experience even more go-kart, perhaps, than some of the other models, and in fact, again, much more like the original. What the One does offer is not quite a standard, but multifunction steering wheel, which is an extra if you want the multifunctions, otherwise you do lose out on those. But you do have your speedo and rev counter in front of you, and then a mini feature, which is this lovely circular dial over here in the center of the dash. On the Cooper versions, you have, for example, navigation, you have a big infotainment screen, etc. in front of you. On this version, well, you lose out a little bit on that, and you end up with your radio system over here. You do have Bluetooth for your telephone and media, but it doesn't have all the up-to-date infotainment systems that the Cooper versions have. You come down over here, you do have full air conditioning, which is nice and neat and an interesting feature. And then you do have mini toggle switches over here, including the very interesting stop-start one. And something about the One in particular is that it's not quite a keyless go system. I think it's probably in the interest of money, but you actually have to touch the toggle key against the side of the steering column and then press the button to start. Not a hardship, just something you learn to live with on this version. You do have below there your USB, which is very nice and neat, and of course cup holders, which just happen to hold my cell phone absolutely perfectly over there. Over here, you do of course have your very slick, very smooth, very nice 6-speed manual gearbox. Being that smaller engine and turboed, keep it in the rev band, you get nice performance out of this little car. And you can have fun, enjoy the handling without it being totally overpowered. Personally, I quite like that feature about it. So that is there as well. Other than that, familiar mini place with, as I said just now, a few creature comforts that maybe are taken out in order to create the One version at a much better price. Coming to the back seat of the Mini, and obviously whether it's the One or a Cooper is the same. Well, it's a smallish place, but this, I've said before, is a boutique hatch. You're buying it because it's a Mini. You're buying it because you want the Mini features, the Mini handling, and the impact and impression of a Mini. So you've got to accept there's adequate legroom for me in the back over here, and interestingly, more than enough headroom. The rear seat is tailored very much for two. In fact, there's this sort of hump over here in the middle, so You don't want more than 2 people in the back seat of this car, but not that uncomfortable for 2 in the back. Let's talk price, because that's what it comes down to. What Mini have done is they've put in the smaller engine, they've deleted a few features, and they've dropped the price by about 50,000 Rand. So this one, as standard, comes in at 272,000 Rand for the one version without any extras on it. For a Mini, it's very good value. For a small car, well, boutique hatch, you pay the price for the boutique hatch. You have to accept that. You've got to be careful. There are options and there are extras that you can spec onto a Mini One. And if you go a bit crazy, you may as well buy a Cooper, because you're going to be at that same price range. But if you spec very carefully and add 1 or 2 extras like the multifunction steering wheel, which I would recommend, you're going to have a really nice Mini, being a Mini, at a very good price and a big discount from a Cooper version. If you drive it around town and you're not into racing, then certainly this is a very good option for you, and getting into the brand, getting into Mini at a far better price. It also does come with standard a 3-year 60,000 kilometer service plan, so you get that included in your purchase, and that's something you need to factor into it. The choice is yours. If you like Mini, if you like the image of a Mini, this is definitely a very good one to look at, getting into the brand at a far better price. For Motor Matters, I'm Alan R. See you next time.